Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here is Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Reverend Blackwell, and let me say Happy New Year to all of our listeners and viewers across the 50 states, and we're lucky to welcome you to another fresh year of It's Time. And some might say, what is it time for? Well, it is time for social justice, and we must be about our Father's business, and this is what we shall endeavor to relate and to engage in as the Lord shall give us permission. I'm Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and I'd like to welcome you to another spiritual broadcast in which we go behind the scenes to the spiritual application. We know life doesn't happen in a vacuum or in a bubble, that things have consequences, and life is not to be lived in the abstract, but in the concrete. When it's your problem, then it's abstract, but when it's my problem, then it is concrete. All right. And so this is what we are about in this journey here that we have been embarked upon lo these many years, I think since December 2017, and we are still inching along, inching toward justice. We want to send our condolences to our families who are bereaved locally and internationally as well, because that your name is not known other than on the funeral directory doesn't mean that your life was less important. We lost Desmond Tutu since the last time I was able to broadcast, and today we mourn the passing of another international legend, in that Mr. Sidney Poitier, who I first saw in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And so I'm dating myself, and they call me Mr. Tibbs. Among his other credits, and Lilies of the Field, To Serve with Love, a whole host of academics or credits in the academic academy there in Hollywood for a Haitian immigrant whose family sold their fruit in Miami, but who lived over in the islands. So we welcome you, and we thank God for you. And since this thing is going to go off, I better turn it off and give you our marching orders. Our marching orders are from Deuteronomy chapter 15, picking up our reading at verse number 12. And if thy brother, which says, and if thy brother, an Hebrew man or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him or her go out free from thee. And when thou sendest them out free from thee, thou shalt not let them go away empty, but thou shalt, 1 furnish them liberally out of thy flock and out of thy floor and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto them. So that in the Old Testament was God's way of not sending the poor away empty. If they came there empty, they didn't have to go away empty. We are our brother's keeper, as God has always demonstrated and illustrated. He did not. He was not chary with his blessings to the first couple, Adam and Eve. He gave them a garden. He gave them a community. He gave them responsibilities, but they were well cared for, and until they messed it up themselves, they were the pick of the litter. They had the pick of the crop, in other words. And so then God does not send us away, and neither should we be sent away empty-handed and destitute and poverty-stricken and the like, as we have practiced capitalism in this country. It was not so in God's original order, and it does not have to be so now. In the New Testament church, the first century church, they had all things common. No man said that anything that he owned was his own, but they sold their lands and their houses and their possessions, and they came and laid it at the apostles' feet, and distribution as was made as each man had need, and none of them was lacking. So it's a given that we can practice the biblical principle of sharing and caring and philanthropy and just goodwill, if we have a goodwill. But of course, in this capitalistic system, as the late matriarch Bell Hooks was said, in this imperialistic, patriarchal, white supremacist, and another choice adjective that she would append to that description of the social structure, we don't have the luxury of sharing one with another. As many times it's a case where we are crippled by the powers that be, so that we can get a good meal each day, but we can't get a job that would provide us a meal for the rest of our lives. This system is a hindrance to initiative, because it can't have everybody doing well. Capitalism capitalizes means that it capitalizes on the misfortune as well as the fortune of those of its subjects, and you can take that to the bank and put it in the bank, because the bank will spend it. The bank itself holds us hostage, and it profits off of our lack thereof, and it profits off of our prosperity. It profits off of us whether we like it or not. The fees for not maintaining a certain amount of balance, and then they charge us a fee for cashing out checks, or for writing our checks, or for processing our checks, even though the account of the one is in the same account as the other. But because of the capitalistic system, capitalistic means capitalizing. I'm capitalizing on you, and you are seeking to capitalize on me. We can call it by other terms, exploitation, economic exploitation, yes. But for in God's economy, there is no economic exploitation. And so every man sits under his own vine and his own fig tree. All right? And that is the way God planned it, and it's the way that it works the best. And it is a shame that in the 21st, 22nd century, that we cannot find it in our hearts to share with our brothers and our sisters who are less fortunate than we are. And each of us is less fortunate than his better. And what we can slice that as it may, but if $100, if you got change for $100 bill, if you got to make change for $100 bill, the billionaire says, or the trillionaire says that $100 is change. So it depends on where you are standing on the platform. All right. Keeping in mind that Jesus told us to do unto others as we would have them do unto you. And this we must endeavor to do, and this we will endeavor to do. And this is not an abstraction. He placed it on the Jericho Road, and the Jericho Road was a symbol for all that is wrong, and he put it among the religious order, because the religious order was the biggest gangbanger in the country, in the world, has always been and always will be. And more bloodshed has flowed from religion than has flowed from politics. I'm close, of course, when we mix politics with religion, we get a toxic brew, a toxic stew. And it is evident that this is the case in our world, and it is the source of our wars, and it is the source of our infighting and our scramble for prominence, and it is the source of our discontent, because if we cannot recognize each other's existence, then we are in a pretty sorry state of affairs. And this is the state of the world in which we find ourselves at this hour. And we must repent and turn back to God, for he has afflicted us. And as the book of Hosea, the prophet Hosea writes, he will bind us up. He hath torn, and he will heal us if we will return unto the Lord. Yes, come and let us return unto the Lord, for he hath torn, and he will heal us. He has smitten, and he will bind us up. Yes, after 2 days will he revive us, and in the third day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight. That 6th chapter haunts my meditation. Then shall we know, if we follow on to know the Lord. His going forth is prepared as the morning, and he shall come unto us as the rain, as the latter and the former rain unto the earth. Glory be unto our God. If I am asked of what we are doing this day, we are pursuing our social justice initiative. I firmly believe in reparations, if not reparations for the 150 years or 246 years of unrequited toil, then definitely following Reconstruction, with the initiation of the black codes all across the South and across the North as well, where the housing restrictions were placed in the way of the formerly enslaved, rather, and the newly enfranchised people, and then we were denied the use of the ballot, where it could be restricted, and then we were denied the housing, which was the bedrock of America, and we were basically marked out, redlined out, as it came to be. But of course, those things were put in place following the failure of the end of Reconstruction. W.E.B. Du Bois says Reconstruction was not a failure, but it was allowed to fail. A lot of good things came out of Reconstruction. The public school system, mandatory public education, came out of Reconstruction. The laws that we live under today came out under Reconstruction. The 14th and 15th Amendment to the Constitution were a result of Reconstruction. And if it had not been for the pilfering and the trifling and the out-and-out fraudulent theft against the Freedmen's Bureau, Freedmen's Bank, by those same authorities who had started the Civil War and who had chafed under the Reconstruction bills, because the southern states were being adversely, even perversely advantaged, even though they had lost the war, because that the presence of the slaves, or the formerly enslaved, in their midst gave them the majority in the Senate and in the Congress. And if that had situation had been allowed to persist, then even though these traitors who had committed treason who had committed treason against the order of the Union, they would have been advantaged perversely. But Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner stepped up to the plate, and after the in spite of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and the ascendancy to that prestigious office of a Southerner who did not love the slave and who did not love black people, and but who was shrewd enough politician to not get out of the Union, Andrew Johnson, in spite of his machinations and politicking, the Congress was able to hold the line for a good 10 years. And well, let's see, the war ended in 1865, and then in 1877 you had the Tilden debacle, the Hayes-Tilden debacle, and where with the United States northern troops were removed from the southern states, and so that the southern states could then do with the black man as they pleased, and they lynched, and they disenfranchised, and they cut wages, and they sought to reduce to slavery a second time, legalize slavery, and sharecropping, and all of these type of machinations and nefarious machinations, whereby the people who had been enslaved, formerly enslaved, found themselves in a worse condition than when they were the property of these former slave masters. And since these Confederates had lost the war and were anxious and viciously lusting after revenge on their sole object of the war, for which they had been deprived, and if they could reduce the black man to a laborer, a common laborer, then the war would not have been lost. And this is what the newly enfranchised black people were confronting. They were not. Most of them were not sophisticated enough politically, even if they understood the political game. They were not sufficiently educated to combat the forces of the newly ascendant Southern planter class and his northern brother. Never forget that this country was founded upon 13 colonies of slave ownership. And yes, Rhode Island and Delaware were in the mix, and as was the state of New York and Indiana and Illinois. And those planter classes, those corporate giants were anxious to return to their profitability, certainly. And they viewed the formerly enslaved as their property still. And they were not prone to be lenient or to let bygones be bygones. No. And as a matter of fact, they were bitterly contested the vote and the franchisement and the participation of the formerly enslaved in their politics, in their country. And so you can see the dilemma that the black man found himself in after 1877. And believe you me, there was a rollback and a undermining of human rights, civil rights, and it took the collusion of the northern industrial class with the former southern planter class into trap. I think that's a McMichael term, like a rat in a trap. The black man, and we didn't suffer. We suffered as a result of that cooperation between the North industrial and the and the Southern planter class. And no, we have not since 1863. No, we have not completely gotten out from under the thrust or the throes of that planter class. No, we still suffer. And those who complain about CRT being taught in the universities as a undergraduate course are simply the last vestiges, the last death throes of that white Southern majority. Well, it was a Northern majority as well, because white supremacy is still the order of the day in this country. White privilege, yes. Black privilege, no. You have the same thrust or the same agenda or the same objective and the same goals in 2021 that you had in 1877. No, we have not. We progress, yes, but the pushback, oh my God. And what a pushback it has been. It's a glacial increase, incremental, but it's a seismos of entrenched and malignant backlash. That's the best word. It's a bit a religious, a relentless, a persistent, continuous pushback where we make glacial progress, but then there is a white backlash, and we continue to labor under that development. But again, Paul said in Ephesians 6 chapter that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And yes, we do. We must continue to wrestle with that. And I continuously say to my brothers and to my sisters in the labor market, keep up the fight. Your labor is worth something. It is priceless. You must not give it away for free. You must not get a penny less than what you are worth in the labor market, because once you get injured and once the industrial accidents begin to happen, and you know those injuries that we label industrial accidents, but you must not sell yourself cheaply. No. And so as I wrap up, as I said again, I say this year in 2022, if you own a job and they don't want to pay you, don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc.